Surprise! It's Alexei. Bet you weren't expecting me. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Lines That Never Were. My name is Alexei Sanoff, and today I will be discussing the Queen's Superexpress line, its history, remnants, and whether it is still relevant today. This line is the culmination of a series of proposals from the 1950s and 60s pertaining to using the former tracks of the Long Island Railroad Rockaway line that are currently unused, parallel the main line to bypass the majority of the western Queens Boulevard line, and run Superexpress service to the eastern portion of the line past 71st Continental. Very creatively named. Right then, without further ado, let's jump into it. This plan is a result of the existence of the Long Island Railroad Rockaway line. As the LIRR lost more money, as cars began to compete with it more effectively, it attempted to abandon the line and sell it to the city for conversion to rapid transit use. The city was generally receptive to this and began planning to incorporate it into the rapid transit system. This was originally planned as a branch off the 2nd Avenue subway via a 76th Street tunnel and then along the Long Island Railroad main line, with provisions for a branch down Port Washington in addition to the line through to the Rockaways. This can be seen in various proposals of the era, from the late 40s and early 50s. However, when the line was acquired due to the burning of a major bridge along the line, exacerbating the line's money-losing tendencies to the Long Island Railroad, it was connected into the system further south to save money. In 1956, Transit Authority Chairman Charles Patterson proposed a massive trunk line through Queens, which might have run along the LIRR or might have gone north, but the proposal was sunk relatively quickly and so became a moot point. In the early 60s, the 76th Street Tunnel was moved south, see our video on that line for more information, and became the 63rd Street Tunnel, which was approved for construction. The MTA's mid-60s New Routes plan included the line with connections to the Broadway, 2nd, and 6th Avenue lines via 63rd. This became part of the 1968 Program for Action, championed famously by Governor Nelson Rockefeller. It traveled in this iteration along the LIRR main line before connecting back into the Queens Boulevard line at Forest Hills, which also received extensions along Archer Avenue and the Long Island Expressway, necessitating the additional service. This final form, unconnected from the Rockaway line that originally birthed the idea and the trackways, would be approved. Things were finally looking up for the Superexpress. Construction was begun on the 63rd Street Tunnel in 1969, and the Superexpress was expected to follow. Construction proceeded quickly but expensively, and in 1975 the city almost went bankrupt for largely unrelated reasons. This led to the canceling of the Program for Action. The 63rd Street Tunnel was completed in 1989 despite being 95% complete in 1975 and was only connected into the existing Queens Boulevard line in 2001. There are multiple remnants of this line that can be seen. Just before the connection of the Queens Boulevard line and the 63rd Street Tunnel, there is a set of ramps permitting the future construction of a connection to the Long Island Railroad main line. In addition, between Woodside and White Pot Junction, there are 2 empty trackways along the main line where Rockaway trains used to run that would have been filled by this proposal. Both of these remnants can be seen from passing trains, although the trackways, being outdoors, are a lot easier to see. Past White Pot Junction, the northern section of the Rockaway line can also be found, awaiting conversion to either park or combined park rapid transit usage depending upon whether the Queensway or Queenslink proposals gain more traction. No way with Queensway. Although not part of the Superexpress in the strict sense, this abandoned remnant is still relevant as it was included in some of the earlier plans and was partially responsible for the creation of the line concept in the first place. One final remnant, although a little different from the others, is in the rolling stock of the time. The R44 subway cars, ordered as part of the Program for Action, could go up to 70 miles an hour and were tested as such because they were expected to race along the Superexpress that never came. The question then becomes, is it still worth it? I, for one, think it could be. This plan both reuses existing infrastructure and relieves an overcrowded line. However, several things cause me to pause, like the MTA's current state of budgetary unsteadiness. Plus, as I said in the shortlist video, adding communication-based train control allows for an increase of Queens Boulevard service for significantly less money. And in that same video, I listed the most important other extensions at present, and there are a lot. I am personally of the opinion that this extension would be very useful, but not as high priority as those other extensions like the 2nd Avenue, Utica Avenue, and LaGuardia Airport lines. There is also the issue of where the bottleneck is. Currently, there are 4 pairs of tracks across the East River into Queens and 3 main lines, but one of them, Queens Boulevard, has local and express tracks, so there is more or less a balance to be had. Adding in another pair of tracks in Queens then just adds a new bottleneck in the river, unless crosstown service is run along Queens Boulevard, but this in turn runs into the issue of Queens Boulevard riders overwhelmingly choosing Manhattan-bound trains. In short, building this line now would either require another new tunnel or not running all Queens lines at full capacity. So while this line is still useful and bears considering, it is not a priority at the moment. However, half the fun of this sort of video is proposing an extension, so if it comes down to it, I recommend the following service pattern. N-train service would be redirected up the 63rd Street Tunnel, and the R&W would see increased frequency as a result of this. All trains would continue their service pattern as it is at present, with the exception of the N, which would serve the Superexpress. A new yard in Astoria, on the site of a Con-Ed parking lot, would be required in order to store the additional R&W trains. The new yard means that although Astoria is only served by a single service under this plan, the yard and removal of the Broadway bottleneck, please see our LaGuardia extension video to learn more about that, means that the total number of trains per hour only decreases by 1, and of course we get ourselves to Superexpress service. There are, however, still 2 bottlenecks left that can be resolved with a little bit more construction. From Sunnyside Yard to the junction with the Port Washington line past Woodside, there are no empty trackways along the Long Island Railroad main line to use. There are 2 possible solutions to this. The 2 trackways that lead to the Port Washington line can be taken over, but this would require running subway service along Port Washington, which would require 2 services along the Superexpress line as well as formidable political obstacles from Long Island NIMBYs who do not want subway service in their quiet suburban neighborhoods. Regional rail service, on the other hand, is a great idea for the Port Washington corridor, but that's a story for another day. 2 other services are only realistically achievable with the new river crossing, say at 57th Street. The river crossing works best if 2nd Avenue subway is built with express tracks, but they are not required. As an alternative, there is enough space along the embankment that 2 new trackways can be worked in, with some land taking, but not as much as one might expect for hacking a new right-of-way through Queens. The other bottleneck is the aforementioned service imbalance, that this plan halves Broadway service to both Astoria and Superexpress. The new tunnel is also the only feasible solution to this problem. If the new tunnel is built, I would run 2nd Avenue subway service through the new tunnel, which would connect the 11th Street cut and onto the Queens Boulevard local tracks. 8th Avenue service, a D-interlined E, would serve Queens Boulevard Express, and 6th Avenue service, a D-interlined F and V, would serve the Superexpress line through the 63rd Street Tunnel, and a Northern Boulevard station would be built with transfers to Queens Plaza. This plan is fully de-interlined, allowing maximal service along all lines, and has enough service to the Superexpress to make taking Port Washington tracks feasible. This, then, is the ultimate evolution of the plan. One final note. What of the Rockaway Line Northern stub? It's not part of either of these plans. Well, that should be converted into a branch off of Queens Boulevard as in the Queenslink project. See our other Queenslink videos for more. Thank you for listening, folks. This has been The Lines That Never Were, and I'm your host, Alexei Sanoff. Have a good day or night.